It's official now. U.S. President Donald Trump has set the ball rolling on his Gaza Peace Board, and it is turning out to be one of the biggest body of world leaders outside the ambit of United Nations. The shape and form of this board remains fluid at the moment as world leaders continue to accept, reject, or wait to join it. Since the announcement of the ceasefire between Hamas and Israel, the speculations have been doing rounds about its functioning and the formation of the body. To clear the air, Donald Trump took to the stage at Davos today to unveil the much-awaited Gaza Peace Board.
We're announcing more details regarding the Board of Peace, so important. This board has the chance to be one of the most consequential bodies ever created, and it's my enormous honor to serve as its chairman. I was very honored when they asked me to do it.
Trump's special advisor, Jared Kushner, has laid out the plan. He said that the next 100 days will focus on aid and reconstruction. However, the ground reality in Gaza paints a completely different picture. Rafah remains under Israel's control under current line of withdrawal. The conditions for the ceasefire to move into the second stage are yet to be fulfilled. Hamas is yet to completely disarm itself and leave the enclave, and Israeli forces still remain at an arm's length from the homes of Palestinians.
I've been very clear that Hamas must return that last remaining deceased hostage as well, and that will be the full commitment. And then we get on to other things, and we're committed to ensuring Gaza is demilitarized, properly governed, and beautifully rebuilt. It's going to be a great plan, and that's where the Board of Peace really started. And I think we can spread out to other things as we succeed with Gaza.
The U.S. president also made comments on the role of the Board of Peace beyond Gaza, but he fell short of providing much details about it. He said that the Board of Peace will work in tandem with the United Nations and does not seek to replace it. However, at the same time, he's also accused the UN of not doing enough for peace in the world. Trump's Board of Peace is turning out into a body of global leaders. A total of 50 world leaders have been invited to join it. Reports say that at least 35 leaders have accepted the invitation so far. But the refusals are coming from America's closest Western allies. France, Britain, Sweden and Norway, they're all unwilling to join at the moment. Canada has expressed support but is yet to announce participation. Others have signed up, particularly in West Asia. Most Muslim nations, including Indonesia, Turkey, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan and Qatar, have all accepted the invitation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be part of this board. Other Trump allies like Argentina's Javier Milei and Hungary's Viktor Orbán have also taken a seat. Meanwhile, BRICS heavyweights like Russia, China and India have also been invited. China and India have so far taken a cautious path. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping are still mulling their final response. Russian President Vladimir Putin, meanwhile, has thrown a curveball. He says that Russia is ready to pay $1 billion to support the Gaza Peace Board from its frozen assets.
We are ready to send $1 billion from the funds frozen in the United States under the previous administration to this new structure, the Board of Peace, first and foremost in order to support the Palestinian people and use these funds for reconstruction of Gaza and solution of Palestine's problems.
The structure of this peace board includes two primary components, the founding members and the members who joined later. Donald Trump wields the ultimate right to remove any member from the board. What will be the say of these world leaders, and how will the power dynamics play out within the board? That remains to be seen. Let me go across to our assistant editor for Foreign Affairs, Siddhant Sibbal. He's joining us live on the broadcast from Davos. He was there when the signing ceremony took place. Siddhant, extremely important day today as far as the Gaza Peace Board is concerned. That signing ceremony happening with the U.S. president laying out more details of this plan. But all eyes now, of course, will be on what this body is able to achieve in the next few months and years. What's the general sentiment there in Davos with European and other world leaders there at the moment?
Well, many see it as very controversial project of US President Donald Trump. While many have lined it up, like countries like Pakistan, Argentina, many from the West Asian region. The question is the mandate this group, this board has, and Donald Trump has made it clear, he has made no bones about it, that this is something that could replace the UN. He was talking about how UN failed to resolve the 8 conflicts in which he played an important role during his address when the signing ceremony was taking place. Now the question also is about the future of this board, and also the ability of the UN as well, because it is clear that Donald Trump, instead of reforming the United Nations, is trying to replace it. And also, what is conspicuous in many ways is the absence of many countries. Countries like India, China, Russia, and the European countries who were invited were not present at the meeting. As of now, it's not known that whether they are willing to join or not. They were not present. Also, there were no representatives from Israeli side or the Palestinian authorities that were seen, especially at the podium. So there is a question as to this board talking about peace in Gaza, but having no representative when the signing ceremony was happening at the podium. So there are more questions than answer when it comes to Donald Trump's project, this project, which is seen as not only controversial, but an attempt to essentially replace the UN.
Absolutely, Siddhant. And from the Indian point of view, I think it's interesting that Pakistan is part of this board. It's questionable because we in India know what Pakistan has been doing for decades now, that is perpetrating terror against all of us here on the Indian territory. But Siddhant, thanks very much for joining us at the moment and getting us the latest from there. So this, of course, has been a concern, has been an anticipated body. Let me also go across to the United States, where Lieutenant Colonel Daniel L. Davis is joining us. He's a military expert and host of the Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. Daniel, good evening. Welcome to WION. I want to start by asking you, as a military expert, as somebody who's a veteran, what are your expectations? How much of optimism do you have from the Trump-Gaza Peace Board? Do you have any, first of all?
Listen, if I'm being completely honest, I have literally none. Not any expectations, not even any genuine hopes, because it's all based on the personality of Donald Trump. It's based on money. It's based on the power countries trying to impose their will on the weaker countries, as hardly any of the weaker countries actually have a voice. Even this so-called Board of Peace itself is clearly just an instrument of the personality of Donald Trump, as he alone has a veto. He gets to decide who's on the board. He can take people off the board, etc. So there is no reason for any of these weaker parties to actually adhere to anything within the Board of Peace, any decisions that they may make. Because if you don't have representation, if you don't have a call in what happens and a voice in any kind of negotiations, then only thing that's left is a compulsion that you will be given a set of circumstances and you will either comply or, according to President Trump in this meeting here, maybe face the wrath of the United States military. That's not peace. That is an attempt to compel compliance, and it's never worked in human history, and it definitely won't work here.
You know, Colonel Daniel, what's also interesting is how the Gaza Peace Board has now been formed, and we're talking about it, but the on-ground reality is very different. We still don't have Hamas disarming itself, which was one of the foremost preconditions for any kind of peace deal to happen. And ceasefire has been violated multiple times, with both sides accusing each other of violating it. So while we're talking about it, the on-ground action is completely different. How does this move forward then? Is it just for name's sake that Trump has had this peace board?
Right. That's the central issue, because this Board of Peace is supposed to be primarily about the Gaza situation, and only then to be expanded elsewhere if it's successful. But I mean, you just got to look at the Hamas side itself as the first place to look, because they're saying that a unilateral disarmament is equal to submission, not to a political settlement. And they're saying, no, there has to be some kind of a prospect of a hope and a peace for the people of Palestine, or everything that they have been working for will be undermined and they will return back to subservience. So they're saying that politically we can't do that unless there is some kind of major concessions on the Israeli side concurrent with that. That's how you have a chance to get to any kind of peace. And so far, nobody in the West, nobody in this Board of Peace is even talking about anything for the Palestinian side other than complete unilateral disarmament. And so far, I've heard nothing required of the Israeli side.
Okay. You know, before Trump spoke about this, Colonel Daniel, there were concerns that perhaps this peace board will replace the United Nations. Now he said that this peace board will work in conjunction with the UN. What are your expectations from there? I mean, clearly, of course, the UN and its role has been questionable over the past few years. We all have been seeing how they react to different world situations. But now with this peace board coming in, do you expect any sort of, smooth movement or some sort of action happening on ground, considering they'll have strength and money to add to the United Nations?
Well, no, because so far you've had President Trump, even in the context of this meeting where he said that positive thing, it seemed like at the same time he's also talking about the failure, the abject failure of the United Nations, and his claim that they did nothing to help in any of these 8 wars he allegedly helped broker an end to, or that he ended, as he phrases it. And there's what he's talking about, the Gaza-Israeli situation, clearly that's not resolved. So there's no peace involved there. There's merely a ceasefire in effect. But that's just one of the issues. But the whole thing he identified about the United Nations is that there's no enforcement mechanism. I mean, that's one of the big problems, that you rely on the member states to cooperate. And that's with the imprimatur of the United Nations. But here in this one, you don't have any of that unilateral or that international kind of cooperation, and you just have the force of personality. So you have far less chance and no enforcement mechanism other than the United States military at the beck and call of President Trump. That's not international anything. So I don't think there's any chance it replaces the UN. And without some kind of really reformation of the UN, it's not going to get any more effective either.
Okay.
And we're going to have to find some answers to both of those.
All right, we'll leave it there. Let's wait and watch what happens next and how this moves forward. Colonel Daniel, thanks very much for joining us on WION and giving us your perspective.
Thank you very much.